What is up, boys? Thank you for the wait. Having some technical difficulties. Welcome in for the next hour and 30 minutes. You guys got me. I'm going to be answering every single start sit question. We're going to be going through every single matchup this week for week 7. So I can't wait. I hope you guys are excited. Let's get into it. And if you're over on the TikTok live, hop in to the YouTube live. Right now, if you go into the YouTube live, you can get a 14-day free trial to the WalterPicks app rather than a 7-day free trial. But let's get started. First matchup we're going over has to be the Thursday night game. We're doing the Bengals and the Steelers. So let's look at it. Rankings. I think some of the players we need to look at in this matchup, starting with Jaylen Warren. So Jaylen Warren, we saw out in week 4 with a knee injury. Week 5, they had the bye. And then last week, he only saw a 53% snap share. Only saw a 53% snap share with the loss of coming back from the knee injury. Kenneth Gainwell ate into that workload. I'm interested to see. In this matchup, I think it's hard to bench him against the Bengals, guys. The Bengals are giving up the most points to the running back position. If we look at the matchup tab here, we will see that, okay, week 1, they gave up 17 to Dylan Sampson. Week 2, they gave up 17 to Travis Etienne. Week 3, they gave up 24 to Jordan Mason. Week 4, they gave up 20 to RJ Harvey, 12 to J.K. Dobbins. And then week 5, 17 to Gibbs, 18 to Montgomery. Week 6, 32 to Josh Jacobs. They have not given up a bad game to the running back position. And that's why I do think you should be starting Jaylen Warren. We have him as the RB11 on the week. So I like Jaylen Warren a lot. Another player in this matchup, DK Metcalf. What do you need to do with him? DK Metcalf, most weeks, I would say to bench him. But now he gets to go against a Bengals secondary, giving up the 8th most points to the wide receiver position. I think DK Metcalf is a start. I mean, we've seen the last 2 weeks, he's kind of gone off, like much to the difference of my rankings, because I had DK Metcalf as a sit last week. I'll just be honest, but man, he did really well. I mean, he's almost gone over the century mark in both of the last 2 weeks. I think DK Metcalf is a start. And then on the other side of the ball, the Bengals, I think Jamar Chase, obvious start, guys. You need to be starting Jamar Chase. You honestly probably don't have the luxury to bench Jamar Chase. T. Higgins and Chase Brown, I think, are fringe starters, and I would look elsewhere. I don't feel super confident. Let's get to the start-sit questions, and I'm going to be getting to every single matchup. So if you guys do have some start-sit questions for this Bengals-Steelers game tomorrow, I'm going to prioritize those. What do I do with T. Higgins? See, that is the golden question. T. Higgins last week, if we look at T. Higgins, he was not amazing. He saw, I believe, 11 points, and I didn't see the hype. With the Flacco trade, I didn't see the hype. I didn't think T. Higgins was going to improve that much, and now I think he's a fringe starter, guys, and I wouldn't feel super confident starting him. I would not feel super confident starting him. I wouldn't. Start Bill or Rico this week. I still think Rico Dowdle should be considered a top 15 running back. I would be very surprised if right after the draft, Chuba Hubbard comes out. If right after him coming back from injury comes out and is all of a sudden getting the full workload. I don't see it happening. I don't. But let's move on to the next game, boys. I'm excited for that Bengals-Steelers game. I do think Steelers are the heavy favorite. The over-under is very low, very low. It's one of the lowest of this week at 44. For that reason, I think, yes, you should be prioritizing the Jaylen Warren and the DK Metcalf start. But besides that, Jaylen Warren, DK Metcalf, and Jamar Chase. Besides that, I think they're all fringe starters. So the next matchup, boys, Rams and Jaguars. Okay, I like it. Rams and Jaguars. I think the age-old question, what are we doing with BTJ? He saw the best game of his season last week, but do we think that's going to be sustainable? Me personally, I'm not super sold on it. I mean, without that long touchdown, guys, we're seeing the exact same thing, less than 10 fantasy points. That long touchdown kind of did carry him, and I know that's kind of redundant to say, oh, without the touchdown, he does worse, but I mean, it's a factual statement. And now he gets a very tough matchup against a Rams defense. If we look at the matchup tab, which, by the way, this is my favorite feature on the WalterPicks app by far. You can look at how the defense they're going against that week has done against the position. So week 1, they did really well against the Texans receivers. Then week 2, they gave up almost 16 points to Ayamanor. Week 3, they gave up over 20 points to both of the Eagles wide receivers. Week 4, 15 to Pittman. Week 5, 24 to Kendrick Bourne. And then week 6, they held Flowers to 8. So they've been all right against wide receivers. I mean, they held week 1, Nico Collins, I would argue a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL, to less than 6 fantasy points. So it's not the best matchup. BTJ, I mean, you more than likely don't have the luxury to start him. And coming off the week he just had, I think it is hard to bench him. And then On the other side of the ball, we just found out today that Puka Nacua missed practice. So that one raises Devontae Adams. I'm hoping if you do have Puka Nacua in a 12-team format, you are picking up Jordan Whittington. I would be wanting to pick up Jordan Whittington. Shea, what up, dog? Hey, what up, Levi? What's up, bro? I need waiver wire pickups for a 14-team deep league. Some waiver wire pickups for a 14-team league. We're talking about it right now with the Rams matchup. I like Jordan Whittington. I like Jordan Whittington a lot. I think Tutu Atwell could benefit, but I think the main benefitter is going to be Jordan Whittington out of that slot role because more than likely it's looking like Puka's not going to play this week. And then the running backs, Kyren Williams, a must start in this matchup, obviously, guys. Kyren Williams is averaging over, I believe, like 23 fantasy points in the last 2 weeks. I think you have to be starting Kyren Williams. And then Travis Etienne. I'm not opposed to starting this week. We have Etienne as the RB16 on the week. Beautiful. I mean, yes, he's coming off back-to-back bad games, but you look before that. I mean, before week 5 against the Chiefs, he didn't have a single game under 11.6 fantasy points, and his usage has been really good. I mean, he's seeing 2.3 red zone carries per game. He's been super efficient. He's the RB10 in yards per carry. And, I mean, he's seeing a 55% rush share, which is very solid. I would be comfortable starting Travis Etienne. And, for example, Etienne or Chase Brown, I'm going Etienne 100%. Etienne or Jalen Warren, that is a good question. I'd probably go Travis Etienne just because we know what the workload is going to look like with Etienne. With Jalen Warren, we don't know what it's going to look like. He saw a 30% reduction in his snap share last week, so I'm interested in that. Whittington over Adams. No, you have to 100% go Devontae Adams. I'm just saying Jordan Whittington is a sleeper start for one, and if you have Puka Nacua in a deeper league format, I do think Whittington is worth a pickup. Let's see, trade Devontae Adams for Diggs and Vidal. If you need running backs, I like that trade, especially if you have Hampton on your roster. I love that trade. Higgins or Warren, I do think you have to go Jalen Warren. We were just talking about the Bengals-Steelers matchup. I like Jalen Warren. A ton. And guys, remember, right now, if you're in the TikTok live, by the way, go into the YouTube live, and right now you can get a 14-day free trial to the app. All you have to do is use my code LION. Right now, if you were on the TikTok, you can only get a 7-day free trial. In the YouTube, you can get a 14-day free trial. Rams D or Steelers D? Great question. Me personally, I think it has to be the Steelers defense against a Bengals offense that has just looked terrible. Even with Flacco, I don't think it looked great last week. But let's move on to the next matchup if we don't have any more. Or let's see this one. Let's answer this one. How do I pin a comment? I have Johnson and Ladd. Who should I trade away? Man, that is a tough one. Let's actually look. Did Quinn Johnson practice today? That is something we should look at. He did practice today. He will practice Wednesday. That is a good sign. I mean, I would rather have Ladd McConkey. I'll just say that. Like, he's finally getting rolling this season. We know Ladd McConkey can produce at this level, and we're kind of seeing over the last 2 weeks, Keenan Allen has kind of faded into the background, and Ladd McConkey, we're seeing him take over that slot role. And I think it's one of those things we could see Keenan Allen fade into the background as the season goes on, and we see Quentin Johnson as the main deep threat, as the big play guy, and then Ladd McConkey as the safety blanket for Justin Herbert. I like both of those guys rest of the season, but I would be leaning Ladd, and I would be looking to trade away Johnson. I'm not saying that this week is the best week to trade him away, though, because he's coming off a bad game the week before, and then he was hurt last week. I'd probably wait until Johnson has another spike week. True, trade him away. But let's move on to the next matchup. Saints-Bears. This is an interesting one. I do think Bears is the heavy favorite. They have a 47 point over-under, which is actually in the top 5 out of any matchups this week, which is interesting. I'm interested to see what you guys think about this matchup. If we look at it, one quarterback that I really like this week, and it's Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams has actually been pretty consistent for fantasy so far this season. He's the QB8. He's averaging over 20.8 fantasy points per game. He only has one game under 18 fantasy points this season, and it was in a tough matchup against the Raiders, who have been good against quarterbacks. Now he gets to go against the Saints. Let's look at the matchup tab. So week 1, they gave up 18 to Kyler Murray. Decent. Week 2, they gave up 22 to Mac Jones, then 17 to Sam Darnold, then 26 to Josh Allen, which is to be expected. Most defenses would give up over 20 to Josh, and then 17 to Jackson Dart, 27 to Drake May. I mean, they have kind of been getting torched by quarterbacks. I think Caleb Williams is, we have him in the Walter Picks ranking as the QB10. I would argue he's maybe even a top 8 quarterback. I'd probably be starting him over the likes of Stafford, Goff, and maybe even Dak Prescott. I think Caleb Williams is in for a big day. Now, into the backfield. of the Bears. DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift, if you do have any DeAndre Swift start sit questions, drop them. I'm interested to see who you're between. DeAndre Swift is coming off his best game of probably the last 2.5 seasons, which is interesting. He was super efficient. How many yards per carry did he average? 7.7 yards per carry last week. That is insane. We did see Kyle Monangai was still involved. I know because I had to start Monangai in an 18-man league, sadly. And Monangai did see about 5 carries. He saw a large catch, but I would not be afraid to start DeAndre Swift this week. And for example, DeAndre Swift or Chase Brown, I would be going DeAndre Swift. Would you trade away Swift after this great week? Dude, I don't know how to pin comments. Would you trade away Swift after this great week? I mean, let's look at his upcoming schedule. I don't think Swift is an automatic trade away. Like Swift, unless they add a running back at the deadline, but his upcoming schedule is beautiful. After this Saints matchup, which isn't great, then he gets the Ravens, giving up the second most points to running backs. Then he gets the Bengals, giving up the most points to running backs. Then he gets the Giants. So if I were you and you're looking to trade away Swift, I would wait until after week 9 when he gets 2 favorable matchups in a row. And then you're going to be able to tell your league mates, hey, look, Swift has 4 good games in the last 5 weeks to show for it. Now you should be trading for him. So I would hold off on selling high on DeAndre Swift. I would hold off. And then to the other backfield, the Saints in this matchup, Saints-Bears on Sunday at 12. I do not feel confident starting Alvin Kamara. I mean, over the last 3 weeks, he's been outtouched by Kendre Miller. Kendre Miller has looked like the better back on the ground. I mean, in PPR leagues, of course, Kamara is going to be the better start than Kendre Miller by far because he sees the receiving work. I mean, he is always going to see the receiving work as long as he's a running back in the NFL. That's just what he does. That's his bread and butter. But for me, I would not feel super comfortable starting Alvin Kamara. And yeah, we have him as the RB22 this week, but I honestly would have him. I would have him lower than J.K. Dobbins. I'd honestly have him lower than a guy like David Montgomery and maybe even Chase Brown. I do not feel great starting Kamara, even in the good matchup. It's just he's been outtouched by Kendre Miller. He has been played by Kendre Miller really on the ground. And then over to the wide receivers in the Saints. I don't think you should be starting Spencer Rattler, by the way. If you're deciding between that, you might already be cooked. But then Chris Olave, we have him as the wide receiver 27 on the week. He has a great matchup against the Bears. We saw last week, literally the first play of the game, they got Chris Olave with a 50-yard catch. That just shows how they want to get him involved. I mean, they have not been Dave Montgomery or Olave. I would be going Olave. I think here's what I would say. It depends on your matchup. Of course, like if you're going into the week with, let's say, a 55-60% chance to win, you're playing a manager with a ton of bye weeks, I would feel more comfortable starting David Montgomery with the safe floor I think he offers, which with the 4 red zone carries he's going to get per game. Like if he converts on one of those, he's getting you 12, 13 fantasy points. But upside wise, I would go Chris Olave 100%. 100%. Okay, let's move on to the next matchup, boys. Let's move on to the next matchup if we don't have any more questions. Ladd or Rome Odunze? Great question. Great question. I'll answer this one before we move on. Rome Odunze, I really think that game last week is going to be by far his worst game of the season. We're also seeing DJ Moore is dealing with a groin injury. Did he practice today? He went to the hospital after the game. I would be surprised if he plays this week. Yeah, he's dealing with the groin injury. We don't know if he's playing this week. Yeah, taken to the hospital. For that reason, I think they're just going to funnel even more targets Rome Odunze's way. We saw Luther Burden get more involved, which I don't think really hurts Odunze. I think it's just going to raise the whole offense as a whole. Colson Loveland continued to be a non-factor. I would be starting Rome Odunze, especially if Quentin Johnson comes back. I'd go Odunze. I would go Odunze. All right, let's move on to the next matchup, boys. Dolphins-Browns. And I am licking my lips at this matchup for Quinshon Judkins. Like, if there's one buy low, and more than likely most league mates aren't going to want to sell low on Quinshon Judkins after one bad week, but he just had less than, I believe, 5 fantasy points. Yeah, let's dive into it. Quinshon Judkins last week against the Steelers had only 3.6 fantasy points. And yeah, it was a super tough matchup. But before that, this guy was on absolute fire. Bad matchup after bad matchup. He was still putting up elite fantasy numbers. And now he gets to go against a Miami defense giving up arguably the biggest games to any running backs over the last 2 weeks. So we saw in week 5, they give up 32 to Rico Dowdle. And that wasn't completely their fault. I mean, Rico Dowdle got over 33 touches. So that's to be expected. But I mean, Rico Dowdle ran all over them. Then last week, Kamani Vidal, who came into the season as the RB4 on the Chargers depth chart. And I'm not saying That's not to hate on Vidal. I mean, he is clearly a very explosive back. He went up and put over 160 all-purpose yards on the Dolphins. Now Judkins gets to go against them. I absolutely love it this week. I think Judkins is a borderline top 8 running back this week. And I think Judkins, if you can, you might as well send some offers for him. If you don't have Judkins already on your roster, you don't lose anything. Send some offers for Judkins and run it through the trade analyzer. And guys, if you're in the TikTok live, if you go into the YouTube Walter Picks live right now, you can get a 14-day free trial to the Walter Picks app, the trade analyzer, the start sit tool. But yeah, I highly recommend send some offers for Judkins. You don't lose anything for sending some offers. And I think he's about to go nuclear this week. I think this is going to be the cheapest you can get him all year. And then to the other side of the ball, Devon Achane must start. Jalen Waddle, if he doesn't get traded, that's kind of crazy. I want to know what you guys think about that. Apparently the Dolphins are shopping him. If they get a first-round pick, they're going to trade Jalen Waddle. But if he is on the Dolphins this week, I think he is a must-start. I think he's a borderline top 12 wide receiver. But really, besides Achane and Waddle, I don't think you should be starting anyone from the Dolphins. Darren Waller, it's an interesting situation. I think he's a touchdown-dependent, low-end tight end one. I think Darren Waller needs to get a touchdown to have a good day. And for example, Harold Fannin, one guy I am super bullish on. I would be starting Harold Fannin over him this week, especially if David Njoku doesn't play. And then over to, so Harold Fannin, I'd be starting in that matchup against the Browns. Who else am I missing? Jerry Jeudy, don't feel super confident starting him. Yes, it does help him a bit with David Njoku getting ruled out, but trade away David Montgomery for Quinshon Judkins. Beautiful question. Beautiful question. Yes, I would 100% trade away David Montgomery for Quinshon Judkins. Go do that trade right now. Come back to the live stream and keep talking ball. But yes, do that trade instantly. Do that trade instantly. And if we don't have any more Dolphins, Browns, start sit questions. Okay, so Fannin or Kraft? That is a great question. And most people right off the bat would tell you Kraft. Kraft does have a great matchup against the Cardinals. Here's what I will say. If David Njoku does play, go Tucker Kraft, 100%. If David Njoku doesn't play, it is very hard for me to bench Harold Fannin, who since Dylan Gabriel has been named the starter, is averaging over 7 targets per game. So we saw, week 5, 4 targets. Then last week, 10 targets. 6 of those targets came in the second half. Once David Njoku was already ruled out of the game, we saw, Dylan Gabriel was looking him at every moment in the game. You'll also see, if you tune in for a Browns game, which I don't recommend you do, they're not the most entertaining football team this season. If you do watch them, Harold Fannin lines up in so many different spots on the football field. He lines up at tight end. He lines up in the backfield at fullback. He lines up in the slot as a slot receiver. He lines up as an outside receiver. They're just trying to get him the football in so many different ways. So for that reason, if David Njoku doesn't play, I think you have to go Fannin. If David Njoku doesn't play, I think you have to go Fannin. But let's move on to the next matchup. Raiders, Chiefs. I am so excited for this. And it's for one main reason, guys. Rashee Rice. This guy has been waiting in the vault for 7 weeks, and he's about to get unleashed in a big way. I think Rashee Rice is a top 5 receiver this week. I think wide receiver 1 is a little bullish. I'll be honest. I would not be surprised if he starts at only a 70% snap share, and then we see over the next couple weeks, he eases back into his 100% snap share or 95% snap share, whatever. But, we've seen everyone in the Chiefs front office so far this season has come out when people ask him, hey, are you trying to trade for another wide receiver? No, Rashee Rice is our guy. We know when Rashee Rice comes back, he's going to be great. And I couldn't agree more. I think Rashee Rice is going to be the safety blanket in this offense. He's going to be the safety blanket in this offense. And I recommend you do everything you can to trade for him right now. I know it's going to be extremely tough, but I actually, right before I hopped on the stream, I just traded for Rashee Rice in one of my leagues. I traded Pickens, David Montgomery, and Harold Fannin. And I love Fannin, but I traded all 3 of them for Rashee Rice and some fab. And when you do that, make sure you're using the Walter Picks trade analyzer to make sure you're actually winning the trade you're setting for Rice. When you sync your league to the app, which you can do for free with the 14-day free trial, guys. You can do it for free with the 14-day free trial with code LION. You will see that Rashee Rice, we're projecting him as the wide receiver 1 on the season, and you can actually see how the trade's affecting your starting lineup. Highly recommend it. I do it for every single trade I get. Should I trade away Sutton for Cam Scatterbo? Interesting. It really just depends on what you need. If you are a very wide receiver heavy team, you need running backs. Yeah, I would do it. I do view Cam Scatterbo as a borderline top 12 running back the rest of the season. He's getting top 5 red zone carries in the NFL. He's seeing over a 65% rush share, even with Tyrone Tracy on the field. They're clearly leaning on him. Brian Daboll loves him. So yeah, I would be doing that if you need running backs. If your running back room is already stacked, keep Sutton. View on Breece Hall. I like Breece Hall a lot, and I do think he's a buy low. I didn't really highlight him a lot in my videos this week just because I saw a lot of people talking about buying low on Breece, but I like it a lot. So Braylon Allen, we saw Braylon Allen go out, I believe, in the early second quarter of this week 4 game against the Dolphins. Right after that, Breece Hall dropped 16 fantasy points in that game once Braylon Allen was out. Then week 5, he dropped 17.5 fantasy points. He saw his snap share and his rush share rise. And then week 6. Okay, so there's two sides to the story with this one. Yes, he had a very bad game. He had 5.9 fantasy points, but we saw his snap share rise over 10% to a season high for him, over 10% to 73.7%. We saw his route rate rise. We saw his rush share rise almost 10%. We saw his highest carries of the game, or highest carries of the season. So we just saw his workload increase so much with Braylon Allen out. Now, I mean, his upcoming schedule isn't great, but now with Garrett Wilson out, I think they're going to have to lean on Breece Hall even more in the receiving game to stay in these games. I mean, really, Breece Hall's biggest threat in the receiving game is Mason Taylor. So for that reason, I like Breece Hall as a buy low a ton. I like him as a buy low a ton, and you can maybe even wait a week. I don't see him having an amazing game this week against the Panthers, who just held Javonte Williams to a pretty tame performance. But yeah, if you have an offer that you think could work with the Hall owner, do it. And make sure before you send it, put it into the trade analyzer. Just make sure you're winning it. Make sure it's actually improving your starting lineup, because I've gotten plenty of trades this season that I'm winning off trade value, but I'm losing it because it doesn't actually improve my starting lineup. And guys, newsflash, you're doing fantasy trades to improve your starting lineup. You're not doing it to get the flashiest player. I want to do it to actually make my team better and improve my odds of the playoffs. Quinshawn or Rachaad White? So this will be the last question I answer on the Browns game. Then I got to move on to the Chiefs game. Quinshawn or Rachaad White? That is a great question. I mean, Bucky Irving has already been ruled out for this game. And let's look at the matchup tab. I'm interested to see how the Lions have done against opposing running backs. So last week, Isaiah Pacheco didn't do great. He actually did have his best game of the season, which is still insane. So last week they held the Chiefs to a very bad performance in the backfield, which is to be expected. I mean, I think the Chiefs have one of the worst running back rooms in the NFL right now. But then the week before that, Chase Brown had a decent performance. And then the week before that, Quinshawn Judkins went absolutely off against them. Derrick Henry held to a tame performance. DeAndre Swift held to a decent performance. And then Jacobs actually held to well below his average. Lions have been pretty good against running backs. Me personally, I would be going Judkins in this beautiful matchup against the Dolphins defense that gave up over 250 all-purpose yards to Rico Dowdle in week 5, and then gave up over 160 all-purpose yards to Kamani Vidal the week before that. Sean Tucker's usage is going up. Yeah, 100%. That is something to worry about. For me, I would be going Judkins. Better matchup, and I think better usage. I mean, if you guys look at the advanced player profiles, you will see Quinshawn Judkins has the second highest rush share out of any running back in the NFL, behind only Tony Pollard. Fun fact, 71.8% rush share. That is insane. He's getting insane volume. And as long as this game stays close, he is going to get over 20 touches. If this game gets out of reach, I could see them easing in forward more, but I don't think it'll happen. All right, Raiders-Chiefs game. Rashee Rice, you're locking in him. Another sleeper start, Xavier Worthy. I like Xavier Worthy a lot this week. Like, I think Rashee Rice being in the game is going to raise this entire Chiefs offense, and I could see Xavier Worthy being a main benefiter. You know, they've been trying to get Xavier Worthy to almost play the Rashee Rice-esque role for them, which that's just not what he's good at. He's going to stretch the field. That's where you're going to see him be the most efficient, and I think he's going to do that this week against a Raiders defense giving up the 4th most points to wide receivers. I love it. I like Xavier Worthy a lot this week, and I think he's a sleeper start. People are kind of glancing over him because Rashee Rice is back, but I like Worthy. He has back-to-back great matchups. He gets the Raiders this week, then the Commanders the week after that, and then his schedule gets kind of rough. So after both of these games, I could see him walking away, averaging roughly 14, 15 fantasy points in both of these matchups. I think he'd be a good sell-high candidate after those. But then, so Raiders on that side of the ball, I think you're starting Genty. Jacoby Myers, I think, is a sit. I don't even think we have to spend much time on that. He's been out-targeted by not only Genty in the receiving game, but also Trey Tucker over the last 3 weeks. He hasn't had double-digit fantasy points since week 2. I think you're sitting Jacoby Myers. I really think the only person you're feeling comfortable starting there is Ashton Genty. Maybe Michael Mayer if Brock Bowers misses again and you're in a deeper league. But, yeah. So next matchup, Eagles-Vikings. Drop your start sit questions. And guys, if you're in the TikTok live, hop in to the YouTube live. You get a 14-day free trial to the Walter Picks app where you get a trade analyzer, start sit tool, and all of those beautiful things. So hop in, and that's where I'm answering all the questions is in the YouTube. Ramondre or Montgomery in the flex. I'm going to get to that Lions game, so I'm not going to go I'm not going to go too deep into it yet because I'm not to those matchups. But for me, I think you have to go Montgomery. Yeah, guys, look, I have the comment pin. Check the link in the description of this YouTube live, and it'll give you a 14-day free trial to the app. All you have to do is use my code LION when you sign up. Use my code LION when you sign up with that link, and you get a 14-day free trial to the app. Would you trade Amon-Ra to get Rice, Hampton, and T. Higgins? Since we're on the Chiefs matchup, I'll touch on it. It's a Rice question. Let's see. Amon-Ra to get Rice, Hampton, and T. Higgins. I like that a lot, especially if you have a good record. I mean, also, you're only giving up one player for 3. So you're downgrading from Amon-Ra to Rice, and then you just get to stash Hampton on your bench until he's back healthy, and you get T. Higgins, who, I don't love his rest season outlook, but you're pretty much getting him for free because you're barely downgrading from Amon-Ra to Rice. I like that move a lot. Don't be surprised if the first couple weeks it looks like an L because maybe Rice could start slow. I mean, guys, he is coming off a torn ACL, but I like that move. I would be doing that. So next matchup, Eagles, Vikings. This is an interesting one. I have some pretty strong opinions about this one. First strong opinion, I think Jordan Addison is a borderline must start this week. I think you should be starting Jordan Addison, like 100%. Because Quinyon Mitchell, we're seeing Quinyon Mitchell. He was ruled out of the last game, I believe. Was it a groin injury? Yeah, ruled out of the last game with a groin injury early on against the Giants. It's looking like he's going to miss this game as well. He's out of practice, and he's doubtful for this week. And we will see that even with Quinyon Mitchell on the field, the Eagles have been subpar at best against wide receivers. They gave up 18 to Sutton in week 6. They gave up 20 to Wan'Dale Robinson. 20 to Wan'Dale Robinson in week 6, 18 to Sutton in week 5, 20 to Igbuka in week 4, 23 to Puka, 14 to Devontae Adams in week 3. They gave up 14 to Tyquan Thornton in week 2, and then they gave up 18 to CD in week 1. So they have not let a wide receiver 1 go for less than 14 fantasy points on them. Jordan Addison is averaging over 15 fantasy points per game since coming back from the suspension. I think Addison does really well coming off the bye week. I like Addison as a start, and actually I like Addison as a start over a guy like Devonta Smith, who we have 2 spots lower in our weekly rankings. Devonta Smith, I don't love him this week. And it's 2 things. The Vikings are giving up the fewest points to the wide receiver position. If we look at the matchup tab, we'll see the Vikings and specifically Isaiah Rodgers. They are clamping. I mean, look at this. Red. Only a couple greens in there. Literally only 2 greens in the entire thing. I don't like Devonta Smith this week. And then you couple that with how up and down this Eagles passing volume is on a weekly basis. I think Devonta Smith is a sit, and I think you should be starting Jordan Addison over him. And then, of course, Justin Jefferson must start. J.J. McCarthy, if he plays. Carson Wentz, if he plays. Neither of them, I think you should be starting. Who else is in this matchup? Jordan Mason. Jordan Mason has kind of been on my sell high radar for a minute now. Aaron Jones is projected to be coming off the IR next week. And for that reason, I think it's going to end up being a committee. Right now, even with Aaron Jones out, Jordan Mason just has not been seeing any receiving work, really. And I think Jordan Mason is one of those players we've seen in the last 2 weeks, even in week 5, he only got you 12 fantasy points with a touchdown. I think he's one of those running backs that needs to have a really good rushing day and a touchdown to hit his projection, to hit his, this week. He's projected 13.5 fantasy points. I think he has to get in the end zone to hit that or get 130 yards, which I don't think he does. I don't think he does that. So for me, Jordan Mason, I'm fine with sitting him for a guy like Breece Hall, who doesn't have the best matchup, but I would still be starting Hall. Addison or Keenan Allen, I would be going Jordan Addison. We've seen Keenan's role shrink over the last 2 weeks. Now with Quentin Johnston expected back, now with Oronde Gadsden still in the mix. Oronde Gadsden saw 7 targets last week. For that reason, and Addison has a beautiful matchup with Quinyon Mitchell out, I'm going Addison. Devontae Smith or Etienne, I would feel a lot more comfortable starting Travis Etienne. Bad matchup, but we know what we're getting with Travis Etienne. He's seen over a 55% rush share. Before the last 2 weeks, he was averaging over 19 fantasy points per game. And on the season, he's still averaging over 14 fantasy points. He's top 10 in the NFL in yards per carry. I think the good games will come, and I feel a lot more comfortable starting him in this one. Worthy or Diggs. So we did already talk about the Chiefs matchup, but I will answer this. I'm interested to see where we have each of them in the rankings this week. So Diggs we have as our wide receiver 15, which I actually would agree with. I have him very similarly. And then, yeah, Worthy we have down as the wide receiver 30. And, I mean, let me dive a little bit more into this. But Diggs, okay, so Saints were actually really good against slot receivers, and I do think that is why Diggs didn't have a good game. We saw Booty was the one who really benefited from that matchup against the Saints. And I think we see Stephon Diggs bounce back in a big way. Now, Patriots are in trade talks for several wide receivers right now. I heard they're in the mix for Olave. I heard they're in the mix for Waddle. Both would be sick additions to this Patriots offense, but does definitely hurt Diggs. So if one of them get traded, I would not be starting Diggs. But if the roster stays how it is, I would go Diggs over Worthy. All right, let's move on to the next matchup, boys. Panthers-Jets. Oh, baby. Oh, Panthers-Jets is an interesting one. First off, I want to know what you guys think about the Hubbard-Rico Dowdle situation. I talked about it on one of my TikTok accounts, 2-Minute Drill, and I was saying, I think Rico Dowdle is still a must start this week. Like, I would be very surprised if first week coming back from a calf strain, we did see that Chuba Hubbard said he was 110%, but I just don't see a world where Chuba Hubbard comes back and automatically gets even half the carries. I think we see more of a 60-40 split between Dowdle and Hubbard. And I like Dowdle this week. Not the best matchup against the Jets, but I mean, he has been on an absolute tear. I like Dowdle this week. Tetero McMillan, on the other hand, if you can afford to sit him, I would. If you're in a 10-team league, you can probably afford to sit him. 12-teamers, you probably can't, sadly. But Tetero McMillan, I mean, we have him much lower. Like last week, we had T-Mac as a top 12 receiver. This week, we have him outside the top 24. So, yeah, McMillan or Diggs? That's a great question. I would be going Diggs this week. 100%. Man, I wish I could pin comments. How do I do that? Do I hold it? Move it? Man, I'm trying to figure it out. I'm new to the YouTube live, so I'm trying to get it. I'm used to the TikTok live. But yeah, I don't mind that. And then yeah, I would be going McMillan Diggs, London or BTJ. I would be going London 100%. Let's get back to this Panthers-Jets matchup, though. T-Mac, I think he's a sit. Garrett Wilson is not playing this week, almost guaranteed not playing this week. And that benefits not only Mason Taylor, but Breece Hall a ton. I like both of them this week. Mason Taylor now is the top receiver in this Jets offense, which is insane to say. Who would have thought that by week 5? Mason Taylor, before last week, was kind of on an absolute tear the 2 weeks before that. 11.5 fantasy points, 17. He was averaging over 10 targets per game in those 2 games. Yeah, I like Mason Taylor. I like Breece Hall this week. I think Breece Hall bounces back. And then on the other side of the ball, I like Dowdle. Already said that. Don't like T-Mac. And then Bryce Young. I think he's a fringe starter. Don't love the matchup against a tough Jets defense. And I'm probably starting around 18 quarterbacks over him. But yeah, not the most exciting matchup. I think the main storyline from this game is what is the Dowdle Hubbard split going to look like? Mason Taylor or Waller? I'm pretty comfortably going Mason Taylor there. Yeah, I mean, Mason Taylor is going to be the top receiver in this Jets offense this week. And we saw Waller kind of fade into the background last week. I think Waller needs a touchdown to get a good day. Next matchup, boys, is Patriots-Titans. I think Patriots are the easy favorites in this one. And the over-under is actually pretty low. I would have expected it to be higher. It's set at 41, one of the lowest on the week. I think Drake May is entering. Let's look at it. I want to see where we have Drake May in our weekly rankings. I think Drake May is entering almost a must start every single week at the quarterback position. I mean, yeah, we have him as the QB4 this week, guys. So far in the season, Drake May is the QB6. And I hate to say it, but I was kind of expecting it. I mean, you could have seen with the flashes he showed in his rookie year, this guy was going to be special. And so far this season, he only has 1 game under 17 fantasy points, 4 games over 20. Even in the bad matchup, I think Drake May is entering matchup proof. We saw it against the Panthers. When he played the Panthers were a top 3 team against quarterbacks, and he went absolutely off against them. Very mediocre Titans defense. I'm still starting Drake May. I have him as a top 5 quarterback this week. Then to the running back room. Ramondre Stevenson, terrible week last week. Didn't look good. And then Tre'Veon Henderson also didn't look good. Like, when is the breakout going to come? I'm honestly thinking it's never going to come at this point, boys. Tre'Veon Henderson and Stevenson, I don't feel comfortable starting in any league. May or Daniels, Great question. Great question. Let's look at the matchups. I have not gotten to the Commanders matchup yet. Yeah, I mean, Jaden Daniels, guys, he's playing. This is like a slam start. This is a slam dunk. He's playing the Cowboys defense, giving up the most points to not only the quarterback position, but also the wide receiver position. They're giving up the fourth most points to the running back position. I mean, this Cowboys defense is getting cooked right now by quarterbacks. 20 to Bryce Young last week, 26 to Fields, 26 to Love, 29 to Caleb Williams, 31 to Russell Wilson, 24 to Jalen Hurts. I think you have to start Jaden Daniels. Breece Hall or Judkins? I would be going Judkins. Beautiful matchup against the Dolphins that allowed Kamani Vidal to go for 160 all-purpose yards and allowed Rico Dowdle the week before that to go for over 250 all-purpose yards. So I would be going Quinshon Judkins 100%. But if we look at the other side of the ball, Patriots, Titans, guys, I don't feel comfortable starting any of these Titans players. Imanor, nope. Ridley, no. Cam Ward, definitely not. He only has one game over 10 fantasy points this season, which is insane. And then, yeah, that running back room, Pollard and Spears. Pollard is clearly losing work every single week to Spears. I would feel more comfortable starting Spears if I'm being honest, because I think the Titans are going to be playing from behind in this one. They're going to have to get going in the passing game. They're going to have to pass. They're going to be behind, more than likely leading to Spears being in the game more since he is the receiving back. But yeah, Titans is one of the only teams I don't feel comfortable starting anyone from that offense. But yeah, moving on to the next matchup, we are looking at Giants Broncos. Cam Scatterboo. The target of the town last week was, okay, what was Scatterboo's workload going to look like now with Tyrone Tracy back? And we saw Scatterboo. It did not affect him one bit. If we compare the two, Scatterboo, and I kind of know the numbers off the top of my head, so I can go off of that. Scatterboo, 74% snap share. He saw 19 carries. Tracy, on the other hand, had less than a 20% snap share and saw 4 carries. Scatterboo is the clear workhorse for this team. Brian Dable loves Scatterboo as his own son, it seems. And I think Scatterboo is entering that territory. He's startable every single week, no matter the matchup. And I think this Giants offense, much to the contrary of widespread belief this week, I think they're still going to do good against the Broncos. I like Scatterboo. I also like Dart. I think Dart is a borderline top 12 quarterback. I think Dart is a borderline top 12 quarterback with the rushing upside he's showing so far this season. Yeah, and the WalterPicks app backs me up on that. We have him as the QB 11 on the week. I like Dart. I like Scatterboo. Wan'Dale Robinson, on the other hand, that's an interesting one. Because I don't think he's necessarily going to see the PS2 shadow. But then it's like, okay, if Wan'Dale doesn't see the PS2 shadow, who is? Because there's not really that many big receiving threats in this Giants offense. So it's an interesting one. I would be a little scared starting Wan'Dale this week. And really, he only has last week to show for it. Besides that week, in the prior 2 starts with Jackson Dart, he wasn't good. Like, he was literally used just as a check down guy. He saw an average depth of target under 8 yards. I mean, so I would be a little afraid to start Wan'Dale this week, and I would put him in more of the sit category. And then on to the other side of the ball. Broncos, I think Courtland Sutton sees a big bounce back game. We saw last week, I believe he was held to only one catch for 17 yards against the Jets in the Sauce Gardner shadow. I think he bounces back in a big way against the Giants. I think J.K. Dobbins bounces back in a big way. I like Dobbins this week. I like Sutton. And I like Bo Nix. I like everyone in this offense. I think this is going to be a very high-scoring game. I'm surprised that the over-under is not higher. The over-under is actually one of the lowest of the entire week. I disagree with that. I think it's going to be a really good game between the Giants and the Broncos. And I think there's going to be a lot of fantasy points between them. Keenan Allen or Addison, pretty comfortably going Jordan Addison there. We've seen Keenan Allen kind of fall into the background the couple weeks and Ladd McConkey step up into that slot role. Now Quinn Johnson expected back this week. I'd much rather go with Jordan Addison, who's been averaging over 15 fantasy points per game this season and now gets actually a good matchup against the Eagles. I'm surprised I'm saying good matchup against the Eagles, but with Quinyon Mitchell ruled out, even with Quinyon Mitchell's doubtful, sorry. And even with Quinyon Mitchell on the field, the Eagles have been subpar against wide receivers this season. So yeah, I'd go Addison. Nice. Thank you. Yeah, no problem, bro. Next matchup, Colts Chargers. Okay. So we were just talking about Keenan Allen. I think Keenan Allen, let's start with him. I don't like him this week. The last 2 weeks he's averaging, let's look at it. We can look at the exact numbers. And guys, I highly recommend, if you don't have the Walter Picks, at least download it on your phone. Like, you can get a free trial right now in the description of this YouTube live. And guys, if you're in the TikTok live, go to the YouTube live. You can get a 14-day free trial to the Walter Picks app, special for, being in here on a Wednesday night talking ball. You get a 14-day free trial. Just use my code LION. And I highly recommend you download, because you can look at all the advanced stats. Like, I'm about to look at Keenan Allen. You also get to look at the weekly rankings for 14 days for free. The weekly rankings, rest of season rankings, and I can't even find Keenan Allen because we probably have them. Dang, we actually have him a lot higher than I was expecting. I disagree with that. Like, the last 3 weeks, Keenan Allen is averaging less than 10 fantasy points per game. We've seen Ladd McConkey really step up in this role, and I think that was kind of to be expected, really. Like, Keenan Allen, 33 years old. I think it was only a matter of time until we kind of saw him fade into more of the safety blanket role. And I just don't think he offers a ton of upside. I don't think he offers a ton of upside. Me personally, I'd rather go with a guy like Addison. I'd rather go with a guy like if Juwan Jennings or Ricky Pearsall, either of them don't play, I'd rather go Kendrick Bourne. That's kind of a hot take. I'd go Bourne over Keenan this week, though. Start Addison and Rice. You have to go Rice. You have to start Rice over Addison. And then, in this matchup, Herbert or Daniel Jones? Great question. And I think it's close. Me personally, I do think you still have to go Herbert. I do think you have to go Herbert, but I do think it's closer than what the rankings show. I mean, Daniel Jones, we have as the QB 16. We have Herbert as the QB 5. I disagree with that. I think Daniel Jones is still a borderline top 12 quarterback this week, but I just think it's too good for Herbert not to do it, especially with his main deep threat guy, Quentin Johnson, expected back this week. Herbert's just giving you a very safe floor. Like, at the worst, I think Herbert's giving you 15 fantasy points this week. So, go Herbert this week. Who else? Kamani Vidal. Kamani Vidal I have as around my RB20 this week. Yeah, we have him as the RB18. That lines up pretty good with what I think. Last week, this guy went absolutely nuclear. I would be very surprised if we see a similar performance this week, but I still think he's going to take the bulk of the touches from Hassan Haskins. He's clearly the better back in this backfield. I like Vidal as low-end RB2, a flex option this week. I like starting Ladd McConkey. Ladd McConkey, I think, is going into that top 12 wide receiver range now after back-to-back good games. Quentin Johnson, if he's back in the lineup, I like Quentin Johnson. Really the only receiver or the only starter I don't like in that Chargers game is Keenan Allen. I would not be wanting to start Keenan. And then Oronde Gadsden is a sleeper star. I was trying to think of his name. Yeah, Oronde Gadsden last week saw 7 targets in the absence of Quentin Johnson. And this guy, he looked really good. Like, I was surprised that the Chargers were able to get him in the 7th round. That was a steal. Yeah, if you're in a 18-man league, I'm in a 32-man league. Like, Gadsden, I think, is one of those guys you should be sending some offers for, because I think you can get him for cheap. And then on the Colts side of the ball, my one must sit in the Colts Chargers matchup on the Colts team is Michael Pittman. We saw the last 2 weeks he's been out-targeted by Josh Downs and by Tyler Warren over the last 2 weeks. I think it's to the point Michael Pittman is going to need to get a touchdown to get you like a really good fantasy day. I don't see a world where Michael Pittman gets you over 14, 15 fantasy points this week without a touchdown. And that's not to say he couldn't get into the end zone and, get you a good day, but I just think I'd rather bet on guys who can get you over 15 fantasy points just off their volume alone. And I don't think Pittman is one of those guys. That's why I have him outside of my top 25, top 30 wide receivers this week. Tyler Warren, though, locked in top 5 tight end. I think you have to be starting Tyler Warren. Even if you have 2 good tight ends, I think you should be starting Tyler Warren in the flex, vice versa. And then Jonathan Taylor must start. And Daniel Jones, wouldn't mind starting him. I got the question, Herbert or Jones. I would be going Herbert, but I still like Jones this week. Josh Downs or Jacoby Myers? Great question. And I do think it's Josh Downs 100%. We've seen him out-target Michael Pittman over the last 2 weeks. We've seen his role grow exponentially since week 5. I like it a lot. We knew Josh Downs had the talent. It was just a matter of time. And Daniel Jones is one of those quarterbacks. Like we saw back when he was in New York, he loved targeting Wan'Dale Robinson in the slot last year when he was healthy. And I think Josh Downs is kind of his Wan'Dale Robinson this year. I like Josh Downs. I think he has a safe floor. I'd project him around 11, 12 fantasy points. And then if he gets in the end zone, he can get you 20 plus. And then, if you guys, okay, Pittman or Higgins, great question. Me personally, I would be going T. Higgins. Yes, this Bengals offense did look slightly better last week. Yes, T. Higgins did see his second best game of the entire season at 11 points, which is crazy. He saw He saw 8 targets, is tied for the highest of the entire week of the entire season. I don't hate T. Higgins this week, and I would be going him over Michael Pittman. Should I trade CeeDee Lamb for Rashee Rice? I actually, fun fact, yesterday on my Instagram story, did a poll. Who do you want rest of the season, Rashee Rice or CeeDee Lamb? CeeDee Lamb got 63% of the votes, and I would be pretty in line with that. I think CeeDee Lamb, once he comes back, is automatically a top 3 wide receiver. And I mean, this Cowboys defense is so bad, guys, that it's just, I mean, this Cowboys offense, the ball is going to be in their hands so much, and they're going to have to be picking up the slack for this defense. And I think once CeeDee Lamb's back on the field, he's automatically a top 3 guy. I like Rashee Rice too, but I could see him starting slow coming back from the ACL. I'd keep CD. And at the end of the day, it's just too much of a lateral move, in my opinion. Like, you're just wishing bad juju on yourself at that point. But let's move on to the next matchup, boys. Let's move on to the next matchup. I like that. Some of my favorite games this week. I like the Eagles-Vikings. I like the Raiders-Chiefs. And I like the Giants-Broncos. And then the one I just went over, Colts-Chargers. I think those are all going to be really good games and a lot of fantasy points between those two teams. So now Packers-Cardinals. Man, I feel bad for the Cardinals. I think they're about to get absolutely destroyed by this Packers team. I think Jordan Love is a really good start this week against Cardinals defense that, I mean, let's look at the matchup tab. Let's fact check this because, yes, on the surface, it says they're doing decent against quarterbacks, but let's see the quarterbacks they've actually played. So, yeah, week 1, they did good, but they played Spencer Rattler. So that's one thing. Week 2, they gave up 22 points to Bryce Young. Week 3, they gave up 14 to Mac Jones. Then they gave up 16 to Darnold. Then they gave up 9 to Cam Ward, which then brought down their average a lot, which is why they're in the top 12 for points allowed to quarterbacks. And then lastly, they gave up 23 to Daniel Jones. I like Jordan Love this week. Josh Jacobs automatically a must start. I mean, if you're not starting Jacobs, what are you doing? Are you in like a 4-man? Romeo Doubs, don't hate starting in the flex this week. Like, a good question I just thought of, Romeo Doubs or Michael Pittman. That is tough for me. Let's look. I mean, the last 2 weeks since Jaden Reed has been out, Romeo Doubs has been the top target in this offense, 8 and 9 targets. I think you have to go Romeo Doubs. What are your thoughts on Mike Evans? If Mike Evans plays this week, I mean, he is a slam start. Even if he plays in a limited capacity, this Tampa Bay offense is so banged up. If Mike Evans is out there for even 45% of the snaps, I still think he sees 8+ targets. So if Mike Evans plays, start him. And I do think if you want to send some offers for Mike Evans, I think you should. Like, Mike Evans is, if he doesn't play this week, he's going to play next week. One of the two. With Emeka Egbuka projected to miss more than likely the next 2 to 3 weeks, I like Evans. And make sure when you're sending any offers, guys, put it in the trade analyzer. Put it in the WalterPicks trade analyzer before you send it. I mean, just to make sure you're winning it, make sure it actually is improving your starting lineup. And in the YouTube description right now, click that link in the description. You get a 14-day free trial to the WalterPicks app. Normally, you would only get a 7-day. So, guys, if you're on the TikTok Live, go to the YouTube Live right now. You can get a 14-day free trial with the link in the YouTube Live. You get the free trial with code LION. But, yeah, send some offers for Evans. I like that. I like his rest of season outlook once he's back healthy. And, I mean, we know Baker is going to be trying to get him 1K yards. Like, that is the goal. He wants to beat Jerry Rice's record. Golden or Olave? I would be going Olave. I think Golden, through the first quarter, he saw like 2 catches. Everyone was like, oh, this is going to be Golden's breakout game. And then he saw only 1 more catch for the rest of the game. I think at most he's just the deep threat guy in this offense. I hate to say it. I think, as the season goes on, he could progress into more of a consistent target share, but I don't think that happens this week. And I would still be going Olave. Hurts or Love? Okay, so that's in this matchup. Packers-Cardinals. Like the matchup for Love. But, man, it's just so hard to sit Jalen Hurts no matter the matchup. And this has been one of his worst starts out of any years, guys. Like, let's look at, okay, so he's averaging 21 fantasy points this year. Year before that, he averaged 21.3. Year before that, he averaged 23. Year before that, he averaged 27. Like, this guy is just so consistent. And it's almost all because of the tush push. Like, this guy gets almost 1 guaranteed rushing touchdown per game. He's probably the only quarterback that can put up 130 passing yards, and still get you 20 fantasy points. So I think it's hard to bench Jalen Hurts, guys. I think it is very hard to bench Jalen Hurts. I also think they make it a priority to kind of switch it up. I think they're going to get Saquon more involved in the run game, which I think will benefit Jalen Hurts. More red zone trips. I think you have to go Hurts. Such a hard decision every single week. Yeah, it is. Appreciate it. Hey, of course, Gabriel. I appreciate everyone in the YouTube live, guys. Appreciate it. Laporta or Ferguson? This week, I think you have to go Jake Ferguson 100%. You have to go Jake Ferguson, Anthony. I mean, Jake Ferguson, CeeDee Lamb, even if he plays, like through the first 3 weeks when CeeDee Lamb was playing, I know CeeDee Lamb went out, I believe, second quarter in this Bears game. Jake Ferguson was still averaging over 15 fantasy points per game. Yeah, I think Jake Ferguson is the start there, even if CD plays. Should I trade for Aaron Jones? I would not say you should trade for Aaron Jones. I think once he comes back, it's going to be a committee between him and Jordan Mason, kind of like what we saw week 1. Like, let's look at the split between Jordan Mason, or here, I'll go to Jones. Let's look at the split between Jordan Mason and Aaron Jones in week 1, because I'm pretty sure Jordan Mason saw more rushing volume, saw the higher snap share, and I mean, it might be even worse once Aaron Jones comes back from this, what is it, hamstring injury? Let's see. Hamstring, right? Yep, hamstring, which, eek, that's a little scary. Yeah, so week 1, he was kind of saved by that long touchdown. He saw 3 catches. He only had a 50% snap share on the dot, so I'm guessing Jordan Mason took almost exactly the other half of that. He only had 28 snaps and only a 30% rush share. I wouldn't be trading for Aaron Jones. His rest of season schedule actually looks pretty decent, but I just think at most he's going to be a fringe flex play every week. I mean, he saw a 30% rush share when healthy in week 1. Don't love it. Walter Picks is telling me to start Laporta over him. I disagree. I don't have to agree with Walter Picks. And of course, you can listen to Walter Picks if you want, but I think Jake Ferguson has the much safer floor this week. It's a decent matchup against the Bucs for Sam Laporta, but like we've seen so far this season, Laporta can go for 20, he can go for 5, he can go for 7, he can go for 16. It's just all over the place with his game log. And it's just because this Lions offense has so many mouths to feed. Like, they can go to so many different people. They can go to J-Mo. They can go to Amon-Ra. They can go to Laporta. They can go to even Isaac Tesla, the rookie in the red zone. They can go to David Montgomery and Gibbs out of the backfield. So it's just, I think Jake Ferguson has the much safer floor. But it's up to you, of course, and it is close. Jordan Love or Daniel Jones start? That's a tough one. Me personally, I would be going... Let me think about this one, man. So Jordan Love, yes, not the best matchup against the Cardinals, but it's kind of a fake bad matchup. Because if you look at the game log, Cardinals haven't played that many good quarterbacks. And even when they've played subpar quarterbacks like Bryce Young, for example, no hate to Bryce Young, love Bryce Young, but I mean, I wouldn't say he's a top 12 quarterback. He put up 22 against them. And then last week, Daniel Jones put up 23. Hard to bench Love. I would be going... we have them right next to each other in the rankings. I really don't think you can go wrong. I think they both get over 18 fantasy points. I actually am going to say Daniel Jones just because I think he gives you the safer floor with the rushing upside. Like, wouldn't be surprised if Daniel Jones gets in the end zone with his legs. We've seen Daniel Jones. He has 4 rushing touchdowns on the season, and he's getting a good amount of rush attempts per game. And I think it's going to be a high-scoring one between the Chargers. I'd go Daniel Jones just slightly, but you can't go wrong between either of them. What are the matchups we haven't gotten to yet, boys? Commanders, Cowboys. All right. Commanders, Cowboys. Javonte must start, in my opinion. Coming off a bad game, I think he's going to bounce back in a big way against the Commanders that are giving up the 12th most points to the running back position. Let's look at the matchup screen. By the way, guys, highly recommend you use the matchup screen on the Walter Picks app. You can look at how the defense has done against each running back or each wide receiver they've played every single week. So, for example, I'm on Javonte's profile, looking at how they've done against running backs. So, week 1, they did very good against the Giants backfield, but that was still when it was a split between Scat and Tracy, and Singletary was involved as well. And then week 2, 14 to Jacobs. Week 3, they held Genty to 6, but then week 4, Bijan 28, Hampton 13 in week 5, and then Swift exploded for 25 in week 6. I think Javonte is a must start. I do view him as a top 10 running back this week. CeeDee Lamb, if he plays, you have to be starting CeeDee Lamb. I also think even if CeeDee Lamb plays, I would be starting George Pickens, and I have Pickens as a top 15 wide receiver this week. We have him at 16 in the Walter Picks app. I would put him over guys like McLaurin, guys like Keenan Allen. I'd put him right behind Deebo Samuel this week. I like Pickens even if CeeDee Lamb plays. Jake Ferguson locked in top 3 tight end this week even if CeeDee plays. Dak Prescott locked in top 10 quarterback this week. I like all of those options. I think it's a really good matchup against the Commanders. And then on the opposite side of the ball, Jaden Daniels, I agree with the Walter Picks rankings. He is my quarterback 1 on the week, and it's because this Dallas defense is giving up the most points to the quarterback position, guys. The most. Jaden Daniels, week 1. Week 1, they gave up 24 to Hurts. Week 2, they gave up 31 to Russell Wilson. That was maybe the last great game we will see from Russell Wilson in his NFL career. Week 3, Caleb Williams, 29. Week 4, 26 Love. Week 5, 26 Fields. And then last week, 20 to Bryce Young. Jaden Daniels, my QB1 on the week. Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt. So it was kind of a tale of two sides last week. Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt didn't have the best game. He fumbled once again. But we saw his snap share rise to the highest we've seen all season in his young NFL career. We saw his snap share. His highest before that week was 47. We saw it rise to a 66% snap share, 43 snaps, 43 offensive snaps, which is beautiful, 41% route rate. So he was still getting, he was still kind of in a committee approach when it came to the receiving game, but in the rushing game, it was all him. He saw a season high 17 rush attempts, and that just shows that they're wanting to lean on Ja'Cory. They have faith in Ja'Cory. He's clearly the best back in this offense, and now he gets to go against a Cowboys defense giving up the second most points to running backs. I like Crosky-Merritt as they start this week. Deebo Samuel, even with Terry McLaurin back this week, I think you should still be starting Deebo Samuel. I mean, Deebo Samuel has been on an absolute tear the last 4 weeks. He is the safety blanket for Jaden Daniels in the passing game. Even when Mariota was in at quarterback, he still was averaging over 20 fantasy points per game. Yeah, I like Deebo a lot, even if McLaurin plays. I like him more than Terry McLaurin this week, honestly. I could see if Terry plays, it's in a limited capacity. Yeah, he just had his first practice back since week 4, and it was limited. I honestly say he's a long shot to play this week. He is listed as questionable. I would put him as doubtful. And then Zach Ertz, now with Jaden Daniels back, I like Zach Ertz. I would say he's a low-end tight end 1, though. Here, let me just go through some of the guys I'd start over him. I'd start Mason Taylor over him. I'd start Hawkinson over him. I'd start Fannin over him. If Kittle plays, you have to start him over him. I'd start Kraft. I'd go Ferguson. I actually would go Ertz over Kelsey. I think Kelsey is going to fade into the background almost automatically when Rashee Rice comes back. But yeah, so those are my thoughts about Ertz. Who else is in that Commanders offense that I haven't touched on? Touched on Daniels. Talked about Ja'Cory Crosky, or Bill Crosky, my bad. Yeah. So I covered that matchup. I like that game, Commanders Cowboys. I think Commanders are the favorites. Yeah, the books have the Commanders as 2-point favorites. All right, let's move on we have 3 more matchups to go, boys. Falcons 49ers. Okay, Falcons 49ers. I think the big story here is George Kittle playing? Is Ricky Pearsall playing? Who's going to be playing? And really what I can say to that is I have no clue. I am not a athletic trainer for the 49ers, so please don't ask me if Kittle's playing because I have no clue. I know just as much as you guys if you follow, all the breaking news accounts. But I mean, Kittle, if he plays, he's a locked-in top 3 tight end, even if he plays in a limited capacity, just because of how banged up this 49ers offense is. Ricky Pearsall, on the other hand, I don't love him this week. I think when he comes back, it is a PCL injury, and if you watch the replay of that injury, I don't recommend you do it. It is a little gruesome. I think he plays in a limited capacity this week if he does play, and it's not a great matchup against the Falcons defense, giving up the 6th fewest points to the wide receiver position. I mean, look at this matchup screen, guys. Only 2 green scores across all of the wide receivers they played this week. They've only allowed 2 wide receivers all season to go over 11 fantasy points. And that's not info you're getting anywhere else, guys. So if you're in the TikTok live, if you're in the YouTube live, what I recommend you do, if you're in the TikTok, come to the YouTube. And then in the link in the description of this live, you can get a 14-day free trial to the WalterPicks app and look at this stuff I'm looking at right now, the matchup screen, where you can't look at all of these stats anywhere else for free right now. And you'll see Falcons have been really good against wide receivers, actually better than I even thought. Like only 2 games over 11 fantasy points all season. Pearsall's a sit. Kendrick Bourne, here's the thing though. Kendrick Bourne is seeing so many targets because of how banged up this offense is. I still think if Pearsall misses or Juwan or Kittle, if one of those guys don't play, I would still feel comfortable starting Bourne. I'm in a 10-man. Is Jennings droppable? Man, I made a video about this on my TikTok account, 2-Minute Drill, yesterday night. And I said, Juwan Jennings at this point is droppable. They're actually looking at shopping Jennings. That might be the only reason you want to keep him on your roster. Unless you have someone like super important that you need to pick up, I'd probably just keep Jennings on your roster just to be safe, because apparently the Giants are interested in trading for Jennings. And I mean, if Jennings gets traded to the Giants, I do think he's the top receiver right away. But Jennings came out in a press conference this weekend. And I don't know if this is just his ego talking, coming off a one-catch game. I think that is a possibility. He said he's playing through 5 broken ribs, a high ankle sprain, and a low ankle sprain. Now, I'm going to, take that state. Yep, let's see it. Juwan Jennings playing through 5 broken ribs, multiple ankle sprains. That is insane. Like, I just don't think he's going to be startable at all. And I just think his rest season outlook is only going to get worse as time goes on, because Ricky Pearsall's going to get back healthy. George Kittle is going to get back healthy. Christian McCaffrey is still arguably the top target in this offense right now. So yeah, Juwan Jennings in a 10-team league, if you can go for a high upside swing, like Harold Fannin is somehow only rostered in 50% of sleeper leagues. So I highly recommend you pick him up. Like, let's say Fannin's on the waivers, pick up Fannin. Pick up Fannin instead of Juwan. He's just out there for the money. Hey, I don't blame him. If I was in the NFL and I was playing through injuries, I mean, the only reason I'm out there is for the money as well. No more DJ Moore. Yeah, DJ Moore, don't think he's droppable yet in a 10-team league. I still think he could see better days, but he hasn't looked great, guys. And I was saying that pre-draft. Like, DJ Moore is getting taken in round 4, early round 5. Odunze was getting taken in late round 7, early round 8. Odunze was just the far better value. And we're seeing Luther Burden's role grow every week. I wouldn't say DJ Moore is droppable in a 10-team league, but he's one of those guys that I don't feel comfortable starting in any shape or form until we see him produce. But yeah, let's look at, so Falcons side of the ball. Drake London, he's a locked-in top 6 wide receiver for me this week. Drake London, 2 weeks ago, I was saying, please buy low on Drake London. Like, he's going to see better days, guys. And he has seen the definition of better days. Week 4, 25 fantasy points. Buy, and then week 6, 32 fantasy points. He's a clear top target. He's targeted a ton in the red zone, has over a 35% red zone target share. With Penix under center. London, he's a locked-in top 6 wide receiver for me this week. Bijan, RB1 for me. Who else? Kyle Pitts, don't feel comfortable starting him. I'd start guys like Fannin, Mason Taylor, even Kate Otten, all of those guys over Kyle Pitts. But yeah, touched on everyone in that matchup. Let's go to Buccaneers Lions. So we have Buccaneers Lions to cover, and then Texans Seahawks. I'm excited for this Bucks Lions because I am Lions.WalterPicks, so gotta rep. Amon-Ra, I think we see this entire Lions offense have a big bounce back game. They're gonna have a chip on their shoulder after getting after kind of getting cooked by the Chiefs. Amon-Ra, locked in top 2 wide receiver this week. You're not benching Amon-Ra. Sam Laporta. I don't believe Sam Laporta is a top 5 tight end this week. Walter Picks rankings thinks differently. And, I don't have to agree with the rankings. But for me, I'd be starting guys like Jake Ferguson. I'd be starting guys like George Kittle if he plays. And if David Njoku misses, guys, I would be starting Harold Fannin over him. I'm telling you, my number 1 must start, if David Njoku doesn't play, you need to be starting Harold Fannin Jr. Like I'm telling you, since Dylan Gabriel's been under center, he's averaging over 7 targets per game. We saw last week when David Njoku went out in the second half, he got 6 targets in the second half. And if he is on the waivers in your league, I would be sprinting to pick him up. He's only rostered in 30% of ESPN leagues and 50% of sleeper leagues. But yeah, so Laporta, not necessarily a must start for me, but if he's the only good tight end you have, don't be super scared starting him. JMO, not in any way a must start for me, but he's also not a sit. He saw his best game of the season last week. He saw his best game of the season last week. Let's see how Tampa is doing against wide receivers. I would be starting JMO. Like, if you're between JMO and any of the Bucs receivers, like a Sterling Shepard, a Tez Johnson, any of those guys, start JMO. I know you're thinking, okay, with Igbuka out, with Evans maybe not playing, maybe Tez Johnson, maybe Sterling Shepard sees a lot. Oh, shoot. But yeah, for me, I like JMO this week. I like JMO. We have him as the wide receiver 38. I'd say he's closer to the wide receiver 30. And then Demo and Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs locked in top 5 RB. David Montgomery, on the other hand, I think he's a touchdown-dependent running back. If he doesn't get in the end zone, he's not going to see a good fantasy day. But, I mean, he gets a lot of red zone touches. So that means he has a pretty good chance of getting in the end zone. And, guys, you can look at the red zone touches. You can look at target shares, targets per route run, all of those things on the Walter Picks app. You can get a free trial in the profile right now with code LINE. You can get a 14-day free trial to the app. So highly recommend you guys do that. And then let me get to some questions, and then I'm going to get to our last matchup, Texans Seahawks. Once I finish the last matchup, I'll stay on for 10, 12, 15 minutes around there to just rapid fire answer y'all's questions. But Purdy or Bo Nix this week? I like Bo Nix this week. I like Bo Nix over Purdy this week for sure. Last matchup, Texans Seahawks. Texans are coming off the bye week, which I like. just historically, teams coming off the bye, they change up their offense a little more. They look to get their star players the ball a little more if they haven't been seeing the volume. So Nico Collins, for example, I think we have him so high. One of the reasons, one, because he has a really good matchup, but two, because they're coming off the bye week. Nico Collins has not lived up to expectations so far this season, but I think he does well against the Seahawks. Seahawks defense is pretty banged up. Witherspoon, I believe, is still questionable for this game. Woolen is also questionable, I believe. They have a couple DBs that are dealing with some injuries. I like Collins a lot this week. But besides that, I don't really like any of the receiving threats for the Texans. I would not feel comfortable starting Marks or Chubb. I would say if you're between Marks or Chubb, I would rather go Marks for one reason. Marks is the clear receiving back for this offense, and I do think the Texans are going to be playing from behind against the Seahawks, so I could see a good passing script leading to them having to pass more, which means their receiving back, Woody Marks, will be in the game more. So I like Woody Marks more than Chubb, but really besides Nico Collins, I don't think you should be starting anyone in this offense. And then to the other side of the ball, the Seahawks. Jackson Smith and Jigba. I mean, this guy is on an absolute tear. I don't think you can say you're taking any wide receiver over him rest of the season. He's averaging 21.5 fantasy points per game. He's the wide receiver 1 in the NFL in target share, wide receiver 2 in reception air yards per game. He's on an absolute tear, guys. JSN, if he's not valued as the best receiver for fantasy rest of the season, you need to be trading for him. Bro, chill with the Drake May or Goff. Drake May. And then who else is in this matchup? Besides JSN, I would not be starting Cup. AJ Barner is a sleeper start. AJ Barner has kind of seen his role grow exponentially over the last 3 weeks. And his snap share has been through the roof. Like his snap share so far this season, he doesn't have a single game under. Okay, so I'm not counting this game against the Saints where he had a 54% snap share, and it's because they were up by like 25 at halftime. So their starters were already out of the game by the early third quarter. But besides that week, he's averaging over a 84% snap share. And over the last 3 weeks, he's averaging over 15 fantasy points per game. AJ Barner in a sleeper league, or in a deeper league, I think is a sleeper start. Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet, I'm sorry, but I think you have to bench both of them. That's crazy. We have Charbonnet higher than Kenneth Walker, and I don't completely disagree with it. And it's just because Charbonnet's seeing more volume, and he's getting almost all of the red zone carries. Sadly, I don't feel comfortable starting either of these guys this week. I'd start Dave Montgomery over both of them. I'd start Chase Brown over both of them. I don't know about Gainwell. I'd still probably go Kenneth Walker just for the upside. Like we know Kenneth Walker is a good running back. One long run, and I think he could get more fantasy, like one long touchdown, and he could get more fantasy points than Gainwell easy. Dobbins, I'm starting over him. I don't love Kamara, and I'm still starting him over both the Seahawks running backs. And Texans have a really good run defense between Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson. They are, I would say, let's look at the matchups. The matchup tab against running backs, I believe they've been pretty good. Where's Kenneth Walker? Yeah, Zach Charbonnet. Yeah, so they're giving up the 9th fewest points to running backs. Ertz or Warren, I'd go Tyler Warren. Yeah, they are doing really well against running backs. Week 5, they only gave up 9 to Derrick Henry. And then they had a bye last week, of course. And then the week before that, 10 to Pollard, 11 to Etienne. Etienne had one of his worst games of the season up to that point. And then 18 to Bucky Irving, 13. So really, they've only given up more than 14 fantasy points once, and it was to Bucky Irving in week 2. I don't like starting either of the Seahawks running backs this week. But yeah, that's all the matchup, boys. And if you have any questions about the Seahawks Texans matchup, drop those. I'll prioritize those questions. But if not, I'm going to get into the rapid fire section of the live where I'm just going to answer your guys' questions. Trade Gibbs for Rice. Depends on your team. That's why I recommend definitely to download the Walter Picks app. Free trial in the description of this video, 14-day free trial, and put that trade in and see if it's actually improving your starting lineup. Because as you guys know, you can sync unlimited leagues. Look, you can, or I don't know if I can do it on my computer. Yeah, look, you can sync unlimited leagues, ESPN, Yahoo, Sleeper, and CBS. You can sync all of your leagues to the app, so then we can actually give you customized advice and tell you how it's affecting your starting lineup. So I would say this, if that Gibbs Rice trade is improving your starting lineup projections, do it. Because I don't know how your wide receiver room looks. I don't know how your running back room looks. But I value them very similarly rest season, so it really just comes down to what you need for your team. Trade Genty for Tet. I'd rather have Genty. We saw this past, I believe it was yesterday, Pete Carroll came out and said that the 23 carries Genty saw this week is kind of going to be the norm moving forward. And it's one of those things. They need to get Genty the football if they want to win football games this year. They need to get Genty the ball in his hands. For that reason, I'd rather have Genty. I like Tet. Now with Coker coming back, I don't think it's going to affect his target share a ton, but I just think Genty has the much higher ceiling. And I still think Genty could finish this season as a top 8 or 9 running back. Is it worth dropping Tyrone Tracy and pick up Booty or Algier? I would say it's worth dropping Tyrone Tracy for Kayshon Boutte. I don't know about Tyler Algier. I just think you're never going to feel comfortable starting Tyler Algier ever. The only time I would say it's worth it to pick up Algier in that situation is if you have Bijan Robinson on your team, just kind of as a security. Let's say Bijan goes down, now you have the RB1 for the Falcons. That's the only way I would say you should pick up Algier there. But I would be picking up Boutte over Tracy. We saw Boutte have a great week last week against the Saints, and it's one of those situations. The only thing I'd be worried about with Boutte is the Patriots are in the market for a wide receiver. If the Patriots acquire another wide receiver, then at that point, I don't think Boutte's going to be startable ever. But right now, with the current landscape of that Patriots offense, I like Boutte. CD for Rasheed and Jordan Mason. Thoughts? That is not a bad trade at all. Who are the other running backs you could get instead of Jordan Mason? Because I don't like Jordan Mason's rest season outlook once Aaron Jones is back. I think he's touchdown dependent. He has no receiving upside. I think he needs to have a good rushing day. I use NFL Fantasy, so no league sync yet. Bro, we're trying to get that to you as soon as possible. Hopefully by the tail end of this season or next season, we can get you that. And bro, you got to talk to your league mates about switching to Sleeper or something. NFL Fantasy is interesting. I know a couple people on it, and they don't say it's the best. Gibbs for Rice. My wide receivers are Marv Diggs, Allen Hunter. RBs are Gibbs, Taylor, Charb, Benson, Harvey. Okay, fair enough. So Marv Diggs, Allen Hunter. Yeah, it is not the strongest wide receiver room, but you have Gibbs, Taylor, Charb, Benson, Harvey. Me personally, I would be doing that trade. I think when you acquire Rice in that trade, you're improving your starting lineup because right now you're having to start a guy like Keenan Allen more than likely in the flex. I would much rather do that trade. Then you still have Jonathan Taylor. Benson is expected back in the next 1 or 2 weeks. Charbonnet is a decent fill-in RB2 for the time being. I like that trade. Is Golden droppable in a 10-man league? Just depends on what are the options to pick up to replace him. I think that's really what it comes down to. But Matthew Golden, you drafted Matthew Golden for the hope that he would eventually break out. I don't think you can drop him just yet. I think as the weeks go on, he's going to get better. But does that mean he's ever going to be, a locked in top 15 guy this season? I don't think so. But I don't think you can give up on him yet. Give me an option of who you would drop him for. James Cook and Jordan Addison for Quinshon Judkins and Nico Collins. I would be doing that. I'd rather have Judkins and Collins. And I'm just going to start rapid firing, guys, so I'm not going to give as much reasoning for it because I just want to get to as many questions as I can before I hop off the live. Vidal, Mason, or Dowdle. This week, let's look at the matchups. Wouldn't go Mason against the Eagles defense. Vidal, not the best matchup against the Colts. Dowdle, also not the best matchup against the Jets. For me, here's what I'll say. If Hubbard doesn't play, which it's looking like I'd say Hubbard has a 60% chance to play, 40% not to. If Hubbard doesn't play, you're 100% going Dowdle. If Hubbard does play, though, I don't hate starting Kamani Vidal just because his workload looks super safe now. He's the clear RB1 ahead of Hassan Haskins. He's way more explosive, and he was in on pretty much every single passing down for the Chargers. I don't hate starting Vidal. Trade away Devontae Adams for Evans. No, I'd rather have Devontae Adams, especially with Puka Nacua out now. I'd rather have Devontae Adams. Let's look in the Walter Picks app. Let's see where we have Devontae now. Devontae Adams just moved up 6 spots in our rest of season wide receiver rankings. And guys, you can get the same rest of season rankings that update literally hourly. You can get players trending up and down every single week. You can get rest of season rankings for every position. You can get the trade analyzer. You can get weekly rankings. You get a start sit tool. All those things in the link in the description of this YouTube live. You can click on that link and you get a 14-day free trial to the app. All you have to do is use my code LION and click on that link, guys. Any other live, you normally only get a 7-day free trial. But, since it's my first solo live, we did something special, So, hey, get the 14-day live going, boys. Check that out in the description. Thank you so much. No problem, bro. Ertz or Bonner, I do think you still have to go Ertz. When I sync my league, it only shows the commissioner. How can I switch it to my team? Interesting. Maxwell, go to my TikTok. My TikTok is Lions.WalterPicks. I'm the Lions.WalterPicks. Look it up. DM me. Tell me that. And after I get off the live, I will get with someone from our team and fix that, because that should not be happening if it's not actually showing your team. I mean, the only way I would think it's doing that is if you signed in, because you have to like sign into Yahoo or Sleeper or whatever, league you're syncing. If you signed in with your commissioner's account. Besides that, I don't see why I would be doing that. Don't have TikTok. Shoot, Maxwell. Go to Instagram then. Do you have Instagram? Lions.WalterPicks on Instagram. If you could DM me on there. Or if you could send an email to the WalterPicks help email. If you go to our website, you can get the help email from there and send that. But yeah, we should be able to get that fixed once we get your account information and everything. QJ or Rice this week? Definitely Rashee Rice, guys. I think even if Rashee Rice plays in a limited capacity this week, he is still a must start. Look, we have him as our wide receiver 1 on the week. I do think that's a little too bullish, but Rashee Rice is still a must start over QJ this week for sure. Keeper drop, Woody Marks and Cooper Kupp. For me, rest of the season, I would rather have Woody Marks. I just think he has the higher upside, and it doesn't look like Joe Mixon is going to play at all this season. I think Woody Marks, as time goes on, is going to take over this backfield. I'd go Woody Marks over Cooper Kupp. But yeah, boys, I'm going to be on the live 4 more minutes, so drop all the questions. I'm going to rapid fire them. Yeah, I would be going Ertz over AJ Barner. For sure. But man, let's go back into these matchups. Packers Cardinals is an interesting one. I like Jordan Love a lot this week. I mean, Jordan Love now gets to go against the Cardinals defense that I think it's a little deceptive what it shows on the matchup screen, where yes, they rank 11th in points given up to the quarterback position, but they haven't played that many good quarterbacks. QJ or Rice, it's got to be Rashee Rice, bro. It's got to be Rashee Rice. 100%. But yeah, boys, what I'm going to leave you with, make sure you're downloading the Walter Picks app. You don't lose anything. You can get it for free right now. Why do you think Rice is valued so high? It feels like the best case scenario, he's as valuable as the other top players, but he could just be a low-end wide receiver 1. Okay, so Rashee Rice, let's dive into it. 1, the Chiefs front office already came out, and this is the last question I'm going to answer before I get off. Rashee Rice, this offseason, they came out, when they were asked, hey, are you guys wanting to trade for any other wide receivers? They said, no, Rashee Rice is our guy. When he's on the field, we do think he's a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. He's our go-to guy. And we saw literally proof of that. In the first 3 weeks of last season, Rashee Rice was on pace for over 1,700 yards. I mean, this guy was on an absolute tear. And he was the clear, what you can't say for some of the other top receivers in the league is that they have Patrick Mahomes as their quarterback. He is the clear safety blanket for Mahomes in the receiving game. His yard after the catch ability is insane. I believe we can look at yard after the catch on here if I can find it. Yeah, yard after the catch. He was the wide receiver 4, or actually higher because they're counting this week where he got 0. He was more than likely the wide receiver 1 in the NFL when healthy in yards after the catch. I mean, this guy has so much going for him. He's now over a year removed from the ACL tear. I DM'd you on Instagram. Bet Maxwell. I will look at that after. I'll get your account information and we can fix that problem that you're having with the league sync. But yeah, Rashee Rice was averaging over 22 fantasy points per game. And I just don't see any world he doesn't come back right away and act as that wide receiver 1 for the Chiefs. They're in dire need of it. We've seen over the last 4 weeks, I mean, that Chiefs offense has been looking in any which way, any which direction. We saw Tyquan Thornton stepping up in a big way in Worthy's absence. Kelsey's been stepping up, but I think Kelsey's going to fade into the background. We saw, so Rashee Rice, okay, first 3 weeks he was healthy last season, averaged over 23 fantasy points per game. Kelsey, in that same time span, when they were both on the field, Kelsey averaged less than 6 fantasy points per game. 2024, game log, first 3 weeks. Week 1, 12. Or sorry, that's 2025. My bad. 2024. There we go. Week 1, 6. Week 2, 1. Week 3, 7. And I mean, that's insane. And then, of course, once Rashee Rice went down, then Travis Kelce saw a lot more targets. But yeah, I just think Rashee Rice, it's too good. It's too good to not view him as a top 3 wide receiver. He was on pace for 1,700 yards before the ACL tear last year. Clear top target for Mahomes. Front office has come out backing him, saying, yeah, this is our guy. He is a top 5 wide receiver when healthy. And I think he's going to do big things for this Chiefs offense. So that's why we value him so high. And I wouldn't be surprised. Don't be surprised if he starts slow the first 2-3 weeks. He is still using back from an ACL tear, but I think by week 10, I think he goes off. Genty, Vidal, or White this week. let's look at the matchups. Rachaad White, not the best matchup against the Lions. I wouldn't go Vidal. I think you're between Genty. And Rachaad White. We have Genty actually pretty far down this week. Yeah, he's playing the Chiefs. I'd go Rachaad White. Bucky Irving has already been ruled out for this game. Rachaad White has been averaging over 20 touches per game with the absence of Bucky Irving. Thank you so much for your knowledge. I traded Igbuka for him week 5, and now I have London Collins, Rice in my 12-man. I love that wide receiver core. That is beautiful. And yeah, I mean, you might have had a crystal ball trading Igbuka for him back in week 5. I love that. And of course, bro, I'm just here, dishing out what I know. And am I going to be 100% right, guys? No. And you shouldn't expect me to be, like no one knows the future, but I'm just going off the research I've done. And I highly recommend you guys do your own research. You can do your own research on the Walter Picks app. You can get the free trial in the link in the description of this YouTube live, a 14-day free trial. Just use my code LION. You support me, you support yourself. You don't lose anything. You can try it out for free. And I mean, like, I use this. I probably don't want to admit it, but I probably use this over 2 hours a day. Like the advanced player profiles. Let's go to Rashee Rice, for example. Click on him. You can go to any year he's played in the NFL. You can look at all his advanced stats. I mean, look at all the stats you get to look at. You get to look at, of course, his receptions, reception yards. You get to look at his snaps, his snap percentage, his route rate percentage, his target share, his reception air yards, his target per route run, his catch rate, his yards per route run, his yards after the catch per game, his catch rate, all of those things. So, guys, do your own research. It's one thing to listen to me, but it's another thing to do your own research, make your own takes. I paid for the full season back before the season. Does using your code still help you? You can use my code if you want now. I think you can still change it. I don't know if it actually still helps me, but yes, it still helps. There we go. Sam's still in the chat. Hey, appreciate you, Sam, for sticking around, bro. Thanks for helping me pin the comments. I don't know how to do it. I cannot figure it out. Is it this little question mark? I'll know for the next one. I'll figure it out. But yeah, hey, CEO's in the chat. He said it still helps. So there you go, guys. If you want to change to my code LION, if you already signed up, you can. It supports me. But yeah, boys, I'll stay on the live for a couple more minutes just because the vibes are too good to get off, boys. We got to get you comment access next time. Got you, so I can't. Okay, gotcha. I was wondering if I was just missing something. I need a tutorial for the app. I honestly don't know how to use it to the best of its ability. Quinn, I will stay on the live for 4 to 5 minutes now. Tell me what you don't like, what tool, couple of the tools. And guys, drop it down below. What tools do you need help maneuvering in the app? And let me know. I will go through it right now because, of course, you guys can see the app on my screen. I will go through and help you out. So one thing I don't think gets used to the best of its ability by most Walter Picks members is the player prop evaluator. You can literally go on it right away. Click on it, and it gives you automatically the best player props for every single game. So Thursday night, the best player prop we like is Jaylen Warren over his rushing yards. I like that a lot. Just put your code in. Appreciate you, Quentin. Appreciate you. But yeah, then you can go to the filters. You can go to platforms, so you can choose which site you actually are putting your picks in. You can go to games. You can decide what games you want to see. So if I only wanted to see the Thursday night games, it would show me all of the best props from best to worst for the Thursday night games for any game you want to do. So guys, I highly recommend you use that. The start sit tool, because I can't start more. Got you. All right, so the start sit tool. Let's put more in there, for example. Who's your other option besides more? Who's your other option besides Moore? But for example here, DJ Moore. Yeah, we have him as our wide receiver 45 this week. That is abysmal. Let's say DJ Moore and Jameson Williams. So the way I like to use it, okay, me personally, I play fantasy football for upside, Quentin. So I play fantasy football to try to get the guy who has the highest percentage chance to go over their projected fantasy points. And I kind of didn't pick a good option here because they ended up having the exact same boom probability. But here, so first thing I do, okay, look at projected fantasy points. Because if you're just looking at the projected fantasy points on your fantasy app like Sleeper or ESPN or something like that, you're not getting the most accurate data. If you look at the projected fantasy points on Walter Picks, that's the best thing to go off of, in my opinion. So here, JMO's projected more points. That's 1-0 JMO. Then the boom and bust probability percentages, that's even. So I'd say it's 2-1 JMO. Then JMO has the lower bust probability. For that reason, now it is 3-1 Jameson Williams. And then I would say this matchup is kind of a wash. For that reason, JMO won the head-to-head. For that reason, I think you have to go JMO. In a 16, Whittington and all the random waiver wide receivers, brother. If Puka doesn't play, DJ Moore might not play this week. I think it's worth picking up Whittington. think it's worth picking up Whittington because I don't think DJ Moore plays this week with the groin injury, but that's just my take. Yes, pick up Whittington in a 16-man. I think it's worth the Whittington pickup. I think one thing that should be changed is say you mock a trade for your quarterback. When it tells you your projected plus minus on the trade, it should auto-fill in your backups bye week for whoever is available. Ooh, I like that. And that is more of like a, what's the term I'm looking for? Like a quality of life thing. That would be nice. I agree with that. That would be very nice. But I don't know if that's something we can do, but I will put that in my notes. That's a cool idea to just like kind of a 2-for-1. We're giving you, are you winning or losing the trade? But we're also giving you waiver wire help, to help you out with bye weeks as well in the same tool. But yeah, of course you can go to the waiver wire transaction, the top 10 transactions every week and see which quarterbacks, which running backs, which wide receivers we're telling you to pick up. Obviously it's not super important. Yeah, of course, but we're trying to make the best app for you guys. Like this whole app is made to help you guys win fantasy championships. That's what it's made to do. So I love the feedback. And guys, at any time, if you ever have anything that you're like, hey, I feel like this would be super cool in the app, drop it. Like the more minds, the better. We're trying to make this the best app for you guys. So yeah, but I appreciate everyone hopping in. Yeah, I had a ton of fun going through every single matchup, boys. And I hope everyone wins week 7. So I got to go. Yeah, I got to go. Got to go to the gym. Haven't gone to the gym today. Got to get outside. But yeah, appreciate you guys. And I will catch you in the next one. Peace.